It started with a silence so deep that even the ticking clock felt loud. After his wife's sudden passing, Ethan Carter had turned his once lively home in suburban Ohio into a place of quiet routine and unspoken grief. His 6-year-old daughter, Sophie, used to fill the house with laughter, singing to her stuffed animals and asking endless questions about everything under the sun. But lately, even her tiny voice had gone dim. Ethan could see the sadness behind her forced smiles, the way she held her mother's old teddy bear like it was her last piece of warmth, in a world that had turned cold too soon. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the power of love to heal broken hearts, don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to this channel, because stories like this remind us that compassion can change everything. Ethan was doing his best, or at least what he thought was his best. He packed lunches, drove Sophie to school, read bedtime stories that never sounded quite right, and worked long hours to keep their lives stable. But he knew stability wasn't the same as happiness. He missed the sparkle in Sophie's eyes, and every night, when she fell asleep hugging her teddy bear, he felt the ache of failure settle a little deeper in his chest. That was when he decided he needed help, not just someone to babysit, but someone who could bring life back into their home. He interviewed a few nannies, but none felt right. Some were too strict, others too distant. Then came Grace Miller, a young woman in her late 20s, whose warm smile carried both strength and gentleness. She had a background in early childhood education, and more importantly, she seemed to understand loss. "Children feel what we don't say," she told Ethan softly during the interview. Something about her words stayed with him. He hired her the next day. From the moment Grace stepped into their home, something began to shift. She didn't try to fill the silence with noise. She filled it with life. She painted with Sophie in the living room, baked cookies that filled the air with a sweet, buttery warmth, and played old songs that once made Ethan's wife dance in the kitchen. Slowly, Sophie's laughter returned, fragile at first, but soon loud enough to echo down the hallway. Ethan found himself stopping mid-work call just to listen. Grace wasn't just good with Sophie, she understood her. When Sophie cried about missing her mom, Grace didn't hush her or distract her. She sat beside her, held her little hand and said, "It's okay to miss her. That means your heart remembers her love." For the first time in months, Sophie slept through the night without tears. Ethan began to believe he had finally done something right. But as the weeks turned into months, Ethan started noticing something else. Grace had become more than just a nanny. She was a part of their lives, woven into every moment. Sophie clung to her not just with affection, but with dependence. She wanted Grace at every bedtime, every school drop-off, every moment of comfort. Ethan admired her dedication, but somewhere inside, he worried that maybe Grace was taking her role a bit too far. One evening, he came home early from work. The golden light of sunset spilled across the living room floor, and there was Sophie, sitting on Grace's lap as she brushed her hair and softly sang a lullaby. Sophie looked up and said, "Daddy, Grace said she'll never leave us. She's like my new mommy." The words froze Ethan in place. Grace's smile faltered for just a moment before she gently corrected Sophie. "Sweetheart, I'm not your mommy, but I love you very much." Ethan forced a smile, but something inside him twisted. That night, as he stood outside Sophie's bedroom door, listening to Grace's lullaby, he couldn't shake the unease building in his chest. Days passed, and Ethan tried to ignore it, but the line between caregiver and family seemed to blur. Grace started organizing family dinners, redecorating the house with softer colors, and even leaving little notes on the fridge for Ethan that read, "Don't forget to eat breakfast." It was thoughtful, but also intimate. Sophie, meanwhile, began drawing pictures of Mommy Grace at school, which led to a confusing call from her teacher. Ethan knew he needed to talk to her. One Saturday morning, as Sophie played in her room, he asked Grace to sit down. He tried to sound calm. "Grace, you've been incredible, and I'll always be grateful for how you've helped Sophie. But I think we may need to step back a little. I'm worried Sophie's getting too attached." For a long moment, Grace didn't respond. Then, with tears in her eyes, she said, "Mr. Carter, I understand how that sounds, but Sophie isn't the only one who's attached. After losing my own family, this job, it became my reason to get up in the morning. I guess I tried too hard to fill the space I saw in her heart, and maybe in yours too." Her honesty broke through his frustration. He hadn't known she was carrying her own grief, and in some strange, silent way, their broken hearts had found each other. Still, he knew boundaries had to be restored. Grace agreed to take a short leave, promising to come back once things felt more balanced. The day she left, Sophie cried for hours, clutching her teddy bear tighter than ever. Ethan held her close and whispered, "It's okay, baby. Sometimes people need time to heal, just like we do." 2 weeks later, Grace returned. She was the same gentle woman, but calmer, more grounded. This time, she didn't try to be a mother figure. She was Sophie's friend, guide, and light. The balance felt right. And one evening, while watching Sophie draw at the kitchen table, Ethan realized that love doesn't always come the way we expect. Sometimes it's messy, sometimes it crosses lines, and sometimes it teaches us what healing really looks like. As the months went by, Sophie flourished. Her laughter filled the house again, and Ethan finally felt peace. Grace eventually moved on to a teaching position at a nearby preschool, but she remained a cherished part of their lives. They would still meet on weekends, baking cookies and sharing memories. For the first time since his wife's death, Ethan didn't feel like he was just surviving, he was living. And that's the beauty of this story. Sometimes, the people we hire to help us heal end up becoming angels in disguise, sent to remind us what love looks like when it's selfless and pure. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe, and never forget, love can rebuild even the most broken homes. Before we end, tell us in the comments, do you believe that some people are sent into our lives for a reason? Because sometimes all it takes is one person who cares to turn pain into hope and loneliness into love.